Chris Farley. Man, when I think back on Chris Farley as in when he died at 33 years old, the actual time frame, such as a year, 1997. Do any of you guys remember where you were back in 1997? Man, time just flickered by like a quick flame, let me tell you, and it's heated. That's funny. But yeah, like, subscribe, ID in the Discovery channel. Yes, ID in the Discovery channel. The links are provided below. Get that Discovery Go app as well as that ID Go app. You might in fact want to get those two things and combine them, make them into one. But yeah, the man himself, Chris Farley, being dead at the age of 33 back in 1997. December 18th, to be precise. It's a mighty long time, let me tell you. Some individuals that were kids back then, in fact, got real grown kids. Even in today, that was born way back then. That's off the hook. But yeah, Chris Farley, sex, drugs, and death at the age of 33. And then there's always that one babe. Not always, but when the suspicious level when people die, and then there's those figures that hang around you. It's to say, what part did they play in the mess? Could they have prevented you from dying, or could they in fact play the part in your death, as in wanting to take something from you? There's always a suspicious level with that. It helps to be keen in awareness, as in your eyes, keep them open. So yeah, the drugs being involved, and the individual that I'm speaking on, Heidi Hauser, she stands questionable because she was within his inner circle, and more so on that day that he was in fact dead, found dead, right? Because to take photos is to say, she took a photo, and I'll get into that later. She took a photo before she left him. He was, yeah, like out like a light on the floor. She took a photo, as how you take a photo when you're joking, all the other stuff, or with that, and then you show somebody else later. That was her intention, she said, right? But yeah, so let me go back to what I was saying. People in his circle, in fact, felt that she could have saved him, helped keep him alive, right? I pause because I don't know what to say about that is and what to make about it. Because to be the to be the last person to see a person and take a photo of them is to say, well, I don't even know. So Farley, drug issues and the alcohol and the wild chicks. He in fact was a cool comedian. He was a very cool dude. Because to be that cool is to in fact make your way on Saturday Night Live, and that was part of the process as well. You can't be boring, bland, and dry, an individual like me, and end up on no Saturday Night Live. It just doesn't happen, right? And yeah, he was. So nobody in fact expected him to die in the way that he did. And yet to be a Hollywood star is to say you never even know. Nobody can escape real life, right? The pressures with the living Hollywood life. I stated that Saturday Night Live is where he can be remembered from, as well as Beverly Hills Ninja. Anybody remember that? Beverly Hills Ninja. His eating that points to obesity. It's so interesting to be a human live character, because even human beings are live character. We have characteristics, right? There's the compulsion of him eating played the most damage on his life, which is why too he was drug addicted. So many people are, and you can even, well, I can't even go deeper much more under that, as in the root cause, what could have been emotionally, and yet there's not enough time, right? So upon seeking answers into his death, the things that were there pronounced the most was clogged arteries, morphine, and cocaine overdose as a root for him dying, his demise. Now, Heidi Heiser is how I say it, pronounce it right, the woman I spoke on near the opening. it's rather questionable if she was an enabler to him. That seems to be a thing that fuels the drug usage as well. Somebody that helps provide the drugs as well as entertain that sort of thing in place of getting you help. That's how so many people die. To be laid to rest is to have too many friends around you that are in fact yes men and not no sir. Does that make sense? I think it does. The cause and effect, as in what goes up all tumbles down. Friends. Being aware of your surrounding, but more so your friends. And whoever this female was. Since he was known by his circle and connections to be very vulnerable, he was a highly vulnerable man using drugs to drown out his sorrows. That's why the slipping, what's the term for that? Because I don't want to be using stuff all out of context on even him. But to be in a highly vulnerable state is to say you're going to come across all type of people that are going to feed upon your vulnerability, especially when you're a celebrity. Them making their way into your life, say if they weren't there before and say they came later. That's too how celebrity deaths become a possibility. People have motives and motivations behind stuff, right? The reason of wanting to even be next to a Chris Farley. There's money in that. Close ties you don't know is in being used up even by females. So Heiser, who was just 26 years old, the questioning of her. See, to ask a detective, in which I haven't, right? But even that is to gain information on the hours which led up until his death. And there being no signs of foul play. Because see, when I first came across everything, right, trying to analyze and pick apart, what I kind of thought was, well, maybe this is the first thing that clicked off in my mind, this Heidi woman, in which he would party with and have sex with, made me think, well, maybe they were together that night. Or the day that the situation took place, and maybe he died right there in front of her, and she was just the only one right there in the surrounding area, just enough to see it, and maybe she didn't know what to make of it, so maybe she left. I was gonna say maybe that's why she left, right? This Heidi lady, and the questioning up underneath that. You always, I'm just telling you, the viewer, you always want to take this as a lesson. When somebody dies, even in your family, and say there's, because I repeat this over and over, if somebody dies and say it's your close family or close family friend, be watchful of the last individual that was around them. And think back on how was their interactions played out when they were together around each other, right? Because sometimes even death can be, say, accidental or something like that, right? Where a person just clunk all the way out. And sometimes people, in fact, be in the room as in they see it. And they don't know what to make of it because, remember, to party with people and, say, provide drugs to them or party with them and get high with them is to say, well, anything can happen in death when it revolves around law enforcement. If I go and I hang with somebody like a Chris Farley and I'm getting high with him and say he overused too many drugs and I'm friends with him and I done had sex with him and everything else that day, I'm a female, and then say he drops dead in front of me, I'm the type of individual I'm going to call the emergency squad, EMS or somebody, but not everybody thinks like that. Somebody else might in fact will walk out the door and leave him laying there knowing that he stopped breathing and he's dead. Because they don't want nothing to do with law enforcement. They don't want to go to jail. Because even there's responsibility in that. And law enforcement wanting to know, well, if that was your friend, why would you allow him to get that high just enough to stop his heart in the process? Because there's failed organs in that, as in bodily organs are known to fail from too much drug substances. Law enforcement will be all over that woman in half, even when she didn't know. Because FBI goes into all that as well. a woman being 26 years old, Chris Farley being 33, and then him just dropping dead with that. And then her saying, well, I took a photo of him before I left because he was asleep. And so I took it to laugh and joke with him later on about it, which never took place, right? It just helps to be thoughtful and wise in analysis with that sort of thing. So, yeah, to gain information, detectives, on the hours which led up until his death, there was no signs of foul play. I already said that. But still, stuff still be under investigation. Sometimes for years on end. Until the world ends or returns. Who knows, right? So, Heidi. She states she's still shaken by all which has taken place. I don't know if I believe that, or maybe I should. I don't even know. You, the viewer, leave me a comment. I ain't even really stated the story thoroughly because there's holes and stuff missing all everywhere in between. This is all surfaced, is what I'm trying to say. Just trying to figure out and put some type of story together, and you ain't got much to go off of. As to say, I might sit alone and try to visualize their relationship just to see what to make of it. That's just how my mind is. So on the same early morning of December, yes, the date in which I said 1997, an attorney who goes by the name of Tony, he threw together some jobs for this Heidi. Let me just say instead of her last name, Heidi. He threw together some jobs which were in fact party jobs, which would include $300 if she were to dress fully decked out in a stripper outfit. That's what the attorney did. Threw together some jobs for the Heidi lady to dress up as a stripper in a stripper outfit. The party's attendance included 5 guys and 2 females outside of Heidi herself. There were a kitchen full of some guys getting down on cocaine, and one drug of choice for the night was in fact Liquid G. Liquid G. All these different drug and party animals with that sort of thing. I don't think I would want to try a drug by the name of a Liquid G. Liquid G, it just sounds too hood, as in where I came from and grew up in. I don't know. That almost remind me of, say, out in Cali, how people be using or smoking what's called spice. See, to have a drug and call it Liquid G is to say it's a little bit too hood sounding for me. It points back to the hood environment. I just said that, of where I came from. That sort of thing just sound like it will lay you to rest. Liquid G? Sounds like some Snoop Dogg be over there possibly snorting or smoking or something. Liquid G. So Farley had been up for 3 days straight with no sleep. You know, even sleep deprivation is known to kill people, even in drug usage. Not a lot of people know that sort of thing. Because to tank a body down is to go all the way down and possibly to the floor to meet death. Farley had been up for 3 days straight with no sleep, and his indulgence had nothing short of partying. Does that make sense? I read that wrong. I'm saying that. Read out loud and see if it say. Dear haters, many of them, right? But yeah, so everything in fact included partying. Never mind. So Heidi, after putting on her stripper costume, she joined Farley in a bedroom while other guests were left there, yes, in attendance. To go do the dirty deed, unless, yeah, because you do have orgies out here. I'm saying, why not? Because that's where they were going in the room. Farley and Heidi. To go make love, but not completely. Some would just call it a horn. I don't know. With that, right? I just threw that loose string out there, right? Some might have said, well, why couldn't they just have sex on the other side of the room, seeming it was a party going down with even that? That's on some wild Studio 54 for those that don't know how people used to party back in the day and have sex in the corner of the room. And yet these individuals choose not to do that. They did it old school style of just taking it to the bedroom and getting freakish with that, right? Rewinding. So, after putting on the stripper costume, she joined Farley in the bedroom while other guests were once again left there in attendance. Time frame was around 10 a.m. And Heidi and Farley were on the bed as she went into her stripper mode, her little stripper dancing sachet with him, while removing her clothes and all this other stuff for this rendezvous with that sort of thing. So hours later, he did even more cocaine. He did more cocaine already on top of what he had already did, the drug substances with that, right? And while on coke, he bought 3 bottles of vodka, cigarettes, as well as orange juice. Oh, and some McDonald's. Yes, Big Mac and fries with that sort of thing to go with all. Well, usually when you eat and you get that high, usually when you put food like that in your belly, Big Macs and fries, that usually helps with I'm saying because the less food that you eat, it could be in fact reversed, because as time change, information change. That's why it helps us stay updated and abroad with that, knowing what scientifically changes, right, and information. But usually the more food you got in your body, the more you're able to handle lethal substances, being intoxicated, because it in fact, the food weights you down. And not only that, more nutrients in the bloodstream, right? Body filtering stuff out with that sort of thing, especially if you urinate or poop in the process while you're high. Not too many people know that sort of thing. And yet to eat less and say not eat as much as to say you're gonna really be high as a kite and possibly fall dead like Prince or something in the elevator. That's why it helps to have something in your stomach if you get high, like say a Farley loved to do, because even he enjoyed getting high. Some people get high and they don't want to. They get high to escape personal problems and issues, right? But then you do have some that come out and confess that they love and enjoy getting high, right? Just eat with that is what I'm trying to say. So while at Heidi's house, a crack cocaine dealer delivered both heroin and, yes, crack cocaine. That cocaine dealer delivered those two things to Farley. He snorted both. That's weighty in itself. So not only do you got vodka going on, you got coke going on. Here you got this crack going on, and the heroin and all this other stuff in your system is to say you're gonna die right away in the process, right? After all this snorting of this heroin and this crack cocaine and all that, he mentioned on himself how he couldn't complete a show. He was high as a kite when he came out laughing and said this about how he couldn't complete a show without the use of heroin. What TV show am I speaking on, you ask? It goes back to Saturday Night Live. While he was on there, yes, more than likely high as a kite, buzzed out and all the rest. To admit stuff like that is in fact say you a real human being, and yet completely bold, and yet I wonder if he would have said that without being high. Possibly wouldn't. Would have been too terrified to taint his image, or because to not know who's your real friends, surrounding friends in the inner circle, is to say, well, who's gonna go to media or somebody else with that sort of information? And you have to be too high as to just start out and everything, I'm guessing, in which he did. So by 10:05 p.m. that night, the very same night, Farley did even 2 more bags of heroin while spilling 5 more vodkas and orange juice everywhere. That's a little bit too much drugged in the deep for that. Ain't no Adele over here. Ain't no Adele over here, and yet her track was rolling in the deep, I think, right? Or Hello with that. Possibly Bye Bye and Death, right? All this drug, with that, right? This is too much. So while he was high with this extra 5 more vodkas and the orange juice and all that, right? He tried to do a comedy stunt where you fall on your butt. And he ended up right on his back and then ended up, snoring with that in the process. Being laid to rest as it's happening, yet you're asleep. And yet to be too intoxicated like that while you're on your back is to say life is going to be taken and lost. Because people have been known to regurgitate food and all the other stuff. Because it just the breathing capacity and how breathing sometimes in fact shifts as it goes down with that much substances in your system. That's how breathing and air and all the rest is in fact cut off. Airwaves, air, whatever, right? Life being taken with that sort of thing. Which is why that Heidi, and she, not to say she didn't have common sense. I ain't trying to say that. And yet I'm thinking if you are an individual and say you didn't get high as your friend did, I'm thinking you would want to stay there and stick around that night until the next morning. Because to be 26 years old is in fact young, right? Enough to not know and have awareness. And yet, I don't know, I think if it was me, got to put yourself in other people's shoes in a situation. I'm thinking I would have wanted to stay around because I'm thinking logically I would have been like, well, man, he was really high. Maybe I need to, because you don't know about the breathing with that. So Heidi left him a note. Before she left him a note. That was around 3 a.m. And after she left a note, she took a photo of him, as I mentioned before in the beginning of the video. She took a photo of him laying on the floor after his comedy stunt. So he gets real high as a kite, right? With everything in his system. He does the comedy stunt. He falls on the floor right on his back. And then after he does that, he starts snoring, right? And then she takes a photo, right? And leaves a note. Every time I get to that part, I always just stall out because it fails to click with my mind, and I don't know why that it don't seem right or something. That part of the story, I can at a glance I can see that there's something about that is not right. I don't know if you the viewer, because the whole story ain't told, so it's hard to gather, and even that, and yet me, I'm able to see into things for what it is or something. Because what I be thinking, well, when he did that comedy stunt and fell on his back and he started snoring, maybe he wasn't really snoring. Maybe he was really regurgitating or whatnot. How people go into that slowly fading out in death, as in when they're on the way to stop breathing. It can sound like snoring. Because for some snorers, people that snore, sometimes it sounds heavy. And even a last breath being on its way as you're breathing. Not saying you're trying to get air, right? But the body's natural process of even shutting down sometimes even sounds like snoring. And that's all the air leaving up out of the chest cavity as it's happening. And it just sounds like the person is snoring, right? That's why that Heidi individual needs to be questioned more if she's seeing death in the process as it was happening. Moving on. But, okay, so the comedy stunt, I stated that. But him, when he in fact laid there for hours on end after she left. His body laid there for hours on end after she left, and while she thought that he was asleep or whatever, right? She claimed when she left him laying there on the floor, he was still breathing. That's what she told police and all the rest of them. He was still breathing before she left. She said she even gave him a kiss. That even sounds suspicious as well. Because why would that even need to be? See, I'm going to let this go because in observation, I'm able to pick and decipher stuff that probably was there or possibly not. Because there's a closeness and recognition. If somebody dies and I tell the police I gave that individual a kiss, that's trying to make it almost seem like I was closer to the person than I was. because it makes me look less suspicious. If I'm an individual and I party with this man and it looks suspicious, even I look suspicious, and for me to tell the police right then, well, I gave him a kiss, because what that does, it makes it looks almost conjoined, as if we were together as one at the hip, despite us possibly not being boyfriend and girlfriend, and yet that shows some length or level of care to the police. That way I ain't got to be investigated much more further and deeply. An analysis. It's picking things apart. Because see, she more than likely might not have even given him nothing, not even a kiss. Could have ran out of the room, not knowing what to do. That way she wouldn't have went to jail. And that's not to say, once again, that's not to say that she had anything to do with his death. I already said how some people get too high and then drop dead, and people fear law enforcement, so what they do is they leave. And then they try to play like they care about the person after. Maybe they do, or maybe they did, right? Maybe they didn't kill this man, and maybe she didn't, that Heidi woman. And yet, I'm just allowing you, the viewer, to know that when sometimes people say that they offered a kiss to somebody, it could have been a dead body sitting there, and yet the kiss might not have once again been involved. That just part of that story could have been the telling to make her appear less guilty. That's all I'm trying to say. As in not wanting to be involved. So to push the situation away is to, in fact, that's target practice in itself. Pushing a situation away is to, in fact, redirect traffic away from you. But yeah, traffic of police and FBI getting on your ass, right? And possibly arresting you, because who's to say she might. But I don't think that she had anything to do with his death. I just feel that she really don't want no point of it. So want no parts of it. So the best strategy to not want some part of, say, a death, celebrity death, is to more than likely put yourself into the situation more closer, because what that's going to do is play duck and dodge by taking the focus off of you more so. A kiss does that, because you're putting yourself all the way in close, and it makes it look like you in fact had some love for that individual. But for their, say, if she didn't say that she kissed him, she would more than likely look and appear more suspect. I got the game all the way on swole. Not to brag about myself, but the guiding and direction with even stuff like that. There's things that people don't know. I'll leave that as that, right? So his body was found by his brother John in the late afternoon. It's so sad with that. Rest in peace, Chris Farley. What would Chris Farley be doing in 2018? I just wonder. Because you do, well, my guy who I love, when I said I love Ozzy and Sharon, shouts out to them. With him, he uses drugs, or have used drugs. Let me clear that part up. Ozzy has been known to use drugs, right? And party, but not that hard, right? Which could be why Ozzy is still alive, because he knows how to manage the partying and even the drug usage even back then, right? You gotta have some self-regulation in that, because to get too carried away is to say, once again, you're gonna be up out of here. So leave me a comment section but you can leave that too, a comment in the comment section. Possibly throw some Oreos in there. I'd buy that, as an I'll take it. But leave a comment in the comment section. With that, my apologies with the wording. So the ID logo, in fact, rests up above, as we see. Live now. Ice Cold Killers is in fact what is live now. Body cam. Watch a sneak peek. Recommended for you. Shouts out to Paula. Each one of these, in fact, hold a description. To get an error preview on that is to click add to favorites. That yeah, right here, that plus is going to do that. Once again, this is a favorite of mine. People Magazine Investigates. Usually all my stuff is up under that as well. My videos is where I aim them to. I do, the honesty. So let me zoom through. Unlocked episodes, once again, body cam. To get a preview, as in the audio visual, is in fact click here, and you would in fact be able to preview that. Add the watch later to click the plus sign. Each one once again has a description. And this is in fact investigationdiscovery.com for those of you that don't know where I'm at. Helps to say, that way you're able to find. To gain access is to in fact click sign in, and you're going to provide your provider, whoever you're subscribed to gain access, because it's padlock closed. That's the only way you can gain a preview. Unlock series. Same thing, description on each one. And you can come on here yourself and zoom through just like I'm zooming through. ID Go original series. Shouts out to Lieutenant Joe Kendall. That is in fact my dude. He is. He's a baller for the ballers. As in the ladies love him, I said that. Crime Feed News, to gain access to this. The Crime Feed, crimefeed.com, is a click right within here, and you would in fact be directed on the other side. On the outside, not the other side, and yet still one and the same. The outside, the signs are telling. Once you make your way there. To receive a newsletter is in fact type your email address in and click next. And you will receive that sort of thing, the newsletter. They're good. The next button, when I said I'm sitting on it because you couldn't see it, I in fact am. So, did you back in the day used to watch Saturday Night Live with Chris Farley? Even if he wasn't on there, did you used to watch Saturday Night Live? That is off the hook. Oh, memories. When I go back in age and space and time travel, I get to thinking about Miami Vice. That's funny as heck. It sure is. So I think that's all to be said. Just leave whatever you feel. If you want to leave me some sunflower seeds with some hot sauce, you can leave that as well. It did in fact match my glove. So I'm gone for now, and I would in fact holla back at you. One.